The 2026 NFL Draft has a loaded tight end group. But on today's show, we're going to go through my top 10 as well as some honorable mentions. But before we get into it, get in the comment section below and let me know your favorite tight end and where you want to see them play. Let's kick off the honorable mentions with Eli Raridon out of Notre Dame there at number 14. This is a guy that is not the greatest receiving threat for NFL offenses, but he is one of the best blockers in this class, and I can see him carving out a fairly long NFL career because he is that pretty good of a blocker. Very smart in his technique as well. At 13 is Tanner Koziol. At 6'7", he presents a monster frame for NFL teams this year. He's also a pretty good blocking threat, but you worry about his athleticism compared to other players around the league and other tight ends in this class. I guess that doesn't really matter when you're 6'7", but at the end of the day, he would be a great red zone threat. Think of a guy like Mo Alie-Cox. At number 12 is Terrence Carter, and he's not 6'7". He's on the flip side of that, where he's an undersized tight end at 6'2". This is a guy where you put in the slots and you get him the ball as much as possible because he can make a man miss an open field, and he did that a lot for the Texas Tech offense just a season ago. Very agile tight end. I would say that he pretty much plays like a bigger wide receiver. And number 11 is Jack Andrews, a guy that is the most solid all-around option on the honorable mentions list as he transferred from Cal to Texas, and I was excited for him with Arch Manning and company, but it just wasn't the greatest season statistically. Again, wasn't the greatest year for Texas in general, but for Jack Andrews, he does everything pretty solid, and I do think he can bring a legitimate receiving threat to an NFL offenses for many years. Now, at number 10 is Jaren Kanak, and the first thing that I noticed is the fact that he's 6'2", 235, so he comes into the NFL a bit undersized for the traditional inline tight end in the NFL level. However, I think his versatility will keep him relevant in this draft process because he's very comfortable in the slot. But I think with his ability to be so good against zone coverage, he knows when to sit, he knows when to be that quarterback's best friend, which he did for John Mateer a lot this past season. I think that can carve him out a pretty nice role at the NFL level. He reminds me of a Chig Okonkwo, where they're not going to win with their God-given size, right? It's more so winning with IQ and athleticism, and just being very smart in space. So Jaren Kanak at number 10, he's not the greatest option, but I definitely could see him being a solid option in day 3 of the NFL draft. Now at 6'5", 260, Sam Roush of the Stanford Cardinals comes in at number 9, a guy that has an argument to be the best blocker in this class, but I think he's much more than that. I think he's very smart in space, and though he's not the greatest receiving threat or athletic player, he's very solid all around, and the fact that he is smart in space, the fact that he can be a traditional inline tight end, he could be taken a lot higher than what we are giving him coverage for at this point in the offseason. He honestly reminds me of a Hunter Henry because he's so solid all around that he's not going to be the flashiest pick, but he could be a consistent player in an offense for many years. So Sam Roush, due to his blocking ability and being smart in space, is at number 9. Now, I know at number 8, the consensus is cooled on this player, especially when you think about where he was in the preseason, but Oscar Delp at 6'5", 245, I understand, again, there's a lot of questions around him, and he didn't have a great season production-wise, but I do think the tools are there for him to be a legitimate NFL receiving threat, as he has deceptive speed, and if you get him the ball, especially if he can get some momentum going, he can start to move, right? I think he could be one of the faster tight ends in that regard. But he's very smart in space. I think he comes into the NFL with a lot of big game experiences in a pro-style offense where teams are going to love that, where, you know, he's not that raw of a prospect. You know what you're getting out of an Oscar Delp, and sometimes offenses want that more so than the more higher upside, exciting prospect. Oscar Delp is at number 8. Again, you worry about his lack of production, but overall, I think the tools are there for him to be productive in the NFL. Now, one of those exciting, untapped potential prospects is Justin Joly, and a lot of people are going to have him in their top 3 because he is that great of a receiver. But at 6'3", 250, he does come in with a bit of a thinner frame, and he's not that great of a blocker. But you'll see a trend in today's video where not a lot of these guys are really well-rounded tight ends. A lot of these guys are either great blockers, not great receiving threats, or vice versa. And for Justin Joly, he is a tremendous receiving threat with a 96% contested catch rate this past season for the Wolfpack. But he's not a great blocker, right? You want to see him fill out his frame a bit more, get a little bit better strength, or bulk up, so he can be a three-down guy as far as being also a traditional inline tight end. But he is a receiving threat that gives you great route running ability, a low drop rate, so you know you can trust him, especially in the red zone area. And he comes in with a lot of experience with 3 different years of being a legitimate option in that Wolfpack offense. Look, Justin Joly has a lot of potential, and teams are going to draft him as such. I wouldn't be shocked if he sneaks into day 2 of the NFL draft. Now, Eli Stowers comes in at number 6, and he's an explosive athlete with a monster catch radius. He might have the longest wingspan and the biggest hands in this upcoming draft class. But at 6'5", 235, the frame checks out as well. A bit thinner, right? He can bulk up a bit and improve his ability to be an inline tight end guy with his blocking strength, continuing to improve. But as far as being explosive receiving threat with great ball skills, a guy that you just want to throw the ball up to in the red zone area as that back shoulder fade kind of a guy, Eli Stowers is your guy next to Justin Joly. But for Eli Stowers, I can just see him in a Mike McDaniel offense where he could be used in a variety of different ways. And now that Mike McDaniel is with the LA Chargers, I can see John Harbaugh having a field day in that Mike McDaniel system where Eli Stowers and Gadsden are on the field at the same time doing 2 different things. So Eli Stowers comes in at number 6. I understand I'm a bit lower on him than consensus, but I think the guys ahead of him are just a little bit better in my estimation. But halfway through the top 10, here is the current list. At number 10, we have Jared Kinnick. 9 is Sam Roush, 2 guys that are very smart in space. Oscar Delp at 8. I understand I'm a bit higher than consensus because he is plummeting down boards. Justin Joly at 7, and Eli Stowers, 2 freaks in the receiving game, or they're at 6 and 7. But let's get into the top 5. Joe Royer comes in at number 5, and at 6'5", 250, not only does he have the resume, he has elite speed for the position, but also the resume to match. He is the first team All-Big 12 the last 2 seasons, and like I mentioned, elite speed. He is a crazy athlete for this position, constantly getting past defenders, whether safeties and or linebackers. He always can win athletically, but also he has great hands. So if it does come to a contested catch situation, you still want to trust Joe Royer. I do want to say a player like him, he has been in an offense there with the Bearcats where he's been the focal point. So NFL teams know whether if you want to draft him to be a rotational piece or maybe the centerpiece of your tight end room, you can trust him and he can be a focal point of a very successful offense at the NFL level. Outside of being an inconsistent blocker and filling out his frame a bit more, which a lot of people can say about a lot of tight ends, Joe Royer is an exciting prospect and he could be much higher. Now, number 4 might be a bit of a shocker, but I have Max Clair of the Ohio State Buckeyes at 6'5", 245. I'll say this. He is the safest tight end option in this entire class, and that includes the number 1 guy on my list because he is so solid all around where he's pretty much good to great at everything as far as being a route runner, a good blocker, a good to great athlete, deceptive speed there after you get the ball in his hands. He can make a man miss or 2 in open space, which is why I could see this dude being the number 1 tight end off the board if teams have questions about the number 1 guy. However, when I look at the guys ahead of them, I think there's a bit more potential. And for a tight end class that doesn't have that surefire hitter after the number 1 guy, Max Clair could slip down the boards. But ultimately, outside of his production dropping, coming from Vandy, transferring to Ohio State, let's just cut him a bit of slack in that regard because they had a first-time starting quarterback in Julian Sayin there for the Buckeyes, but also a loaded wide receiver room. So naturally, Max Clair kind of got, forgotten about in this offense. So that also could be a reason to concern as far as these NFL offenses and how they might use Max Clair. But again, that could also be a reason why he slips down board. So I got him at number 4, but he could easily be number 2 on my list. Now, one of the guys ahead of him is my guy. I really love the potential of a Daquan Wright at 6'4", 255, brings elite size, and again, he could be a my guy in this class. He's a freakish athlete with great speed at this position. I think he brings a complete skill set where a lot of tight ends on today's video, There's questions around their blocking strength. Can they be an inline and a slot tight end? Can they be that complete package? There's questions around a lot of them. Whereas, as far as Daquan Wright, I think he is a top 2 blocker in the class. He's versatile as all can be. The only thing that I would worry about with Daquan Wright is, can he be a reliable threat, throughout an entire season? He has now had 3 to 4 years of playing college football, a decent amount of snaps, and his production is just not great in any single season or really entirely. Daquan Wright, can you rely on him to be much more than just a freak athlete like a Mo Alley-Cox in the red zone area? I'm not exactly sure. He could be a Brevin Jordan 2.0, where on paper, they check all the boxes, but statistically, they're not always there, and you don't know if you can rely on them play after play. But I'm going to trust that you can. I'm going to trust that in the right situation, Daquan Wright could be a long-time starter at the NFL level. Now, moving into the top 2, we now are talking about guys that could be true focal points and game changers on any offense. And I think they're really scheme proof. It all depends for this guy about his attitude. We'll talk about that in a moment. But for Michael Trigg out of Baylor, I think he comes into this class and this offseason with arguably the best hands in the class. At least he's up there with a Justin Joly. But he comes in with great route running ability. He's coming off of a career season with elite speed, and he's one of those athletes where you get the ball in his hands and he can make magic happen. However, there's attitude concerns with a guy like Michael Trigg, and that's why I wouldn't be, I guess, confused if he were to slip down the board farther than consensus would say, because he's had multiple suspensions early in his collegiate career. 2 years ago, he quit on Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin there late in the season. He was ultimately dismissed, and that's where he found himself over at Baylor, where Sawyer Robinson and company had a pretty nice statistical season. Outside of the attitude issues and quitting on Ole Miss, and hopefully he's matured a little bit, and hopefully these NFL GMs will really get after him and question him about his decision making in the past. Because if he can get through that, I think he's going to be great for an NFL offense for many years. But the questions about his attitude, they're real concerns for the next level. And at number 1, as if there were any questions, I think it's a clear-cut number 1, Kenyon Sadiq at 6'3", 245. He's the complete package as far as that being a true, legitimate centerpiece of an offense with no attitude issues. And he's also an athletic freak. He has elite speed for the position, great hands, elite with the ball in his hands, and as far as making a man miss in the open field. He checks all those boxes, and he just came off of a great season for the Oregon Ducks. The only thing is he had a lot of drop concerns earlier in his career. You'd also like to see him fill out his frame a bit more to improve his blocking ability. But Kenyon Sadiq is a guy that you can draft in the top half of the first round, and he can elevate your offense and the floor of it tremendously. So Kenyon Sadiq, no doubt about it, is at number 1. But here is my top 5. We'll run through the top 10 in general here very quickly. Kenyon Sadiq at number 1, Michael Trigg at 2, Daquan Wright. I know it's a bit of a wild take, but I'm trusting his athletic ability at number 3. Max Clare is the safest tight end in this class at number 4, and Joe Royer at number 5. Such an intriguing option there, and I'm excited to see where Joe Royer goes. Now, 6 through 10 we already talked about, but it's Eli Stowers, Justin Joly, Oscar Delp, Sam Roush, and Jaren Kanak. As always, get in the comments section below, because we are continuing every single day dropping a new positional top 10 before we get into all the mock drafts and my guys and fun stuff down the road. But get in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts on today's video and who is your favorite tight end in this class.